In 1989, Venezuela received a financial lifeline with conditions. The conditions cost thousands of lives, and they created Hugo Chavez. Venezuela in the 1980s was supposed to be a success story. Oil wealth had built a middle class and kept the country stable. Then, oil prices collapsed. Venezuela went to the International Monetary Fund for a bailout and were given typical conditions: remove subsidies, deregulate prices, implement austerity immediately. Here's what nobody tells you: the subsidies weren't just economic policy, they were the social contract. Venezuelans had been told for decades that oil wealth belonged to the people, that cheap fuel and cheap food were their birthright. On February 27, 1989, bus drivers in Caracas raised their fares because fuel subsidies were gone. Ordinary people who couldn't afford the new price started boarding buses without paying. Then they started pulling goods from shops. Then the whole city erupted. What began as a protest over bus fares became a nationwide uprising in hours. The government of President Carlos Andres Perez declared a state of emergency and sent the military into the streets with live ammunition to restore order. The official death toll was 276. The government buried many victims in mass graves, and the event became known as the Caracazo. The IMF conditions were a template given to other struggling countries with a predictable result of removing the floor from under a society without warning. A young army lieutenant named Hugo Chavez watched the military shoot his own people over bus fares. 3 years later, he led a coup attempt. 10 years after the Caracazo, he was the president of Venezuela. Venezuela today, the hyperinflation, the exodus of millions, the collapse of public services, can be seen as socialism gone wrong. But it starts with a bus fare, an IMF condition, and a government that shot its own people for protesting it. Next, how France created Lebanon in 1920 that was designed to struggle. Subscribe so you don't miss it.